Greg Pruitt here with the Idaho Dispatch. It is December 8th, right? Yeah, December 8th, 2021, and we call this show the recap, where we just kind of recap some of the recent events and stories that we've been working on to try to give those who maybe don't want to read as much and prefer to watch stuff an opportunity to kind of watch and listen to a little bit about what's been going on lately. And sometimes we have stuff on this show that we don't necessarily get into print. And so in particular, because of the FBI visit to my home recently, I wanted to do a video just to kind of briefly update people on what's been going on with all of the Idaho Dispatch stuff, including the recent visit by the FBI. So to start, and before that, we do want to thank all the people who advertise with the Idaho Dispatch. Currently, we have Alex Kincaid Law, a great attorney out of Boise and Emmett. We have Prestige Property Management. We have the Carl Felt Center, both of those located in the Boise area, as well as Boise Realty. So if you are a company and you want to advertise and help support our effort and get your company name out there, uh, we do have advertising slots available, and you can send an email to us at info@idodispatch.com. We do tell all of our advertisers that advertising with us does not mean that if there is some story for which they are involved, we are going to cover the story and we're going to cover it fairly and accurately, like we try to do with all of our stories. And if they have a political friend who gets in trouble, same thing. We aren't going to cover for anybody. We're going to try and cover every story that we possibly can fairly and accurately. That's what we do at the Idaho Dispatch. So, for if you tend to advertise with us, keep that in mind that we may run stories that you don't like, and that's that we're here to cover the news, not let corporations or companies determine what stories we are and aren't going to cover, and we make that very clear with anybody who wishes to advertise with us. So, um, additionally, some of you may have noticed recently that we've had a little bit of a dip in content. I've kind of caught up on you guys that have sent press releases. We try to send out press releases for all these candidates running and stuff like that. Well, there was probably 11, 12, 12 days or so where I have a really bad sinus infection. And as most of you know, I'm the only one that currently writes stories. Now, people submit op eds and people submit press releases, but I got pretty bad sinus infection. That kind of took me down quite a bit. And then I ended up in the ER last week, I think. Um, my wife caught a stomach bug, and all the kids ended up with a stomach bug. And I thought I had escaped because usually I'm the one that gets sick first. And then I got the stomach bug and ended up in severe dehydration to the point where, because it happened during the middle of the night, and I was totally, I wasn't rehydrating in the middle of the night. I was going right back to bed trying to get some sleep. And the next day, tried to get up to get our baby out of bed, and that's all I remember. Ended up passing out, and I've been having some dizzy spells over this last year. I don't know if it's related to my time in Iraq or whatever, because I have other family members, blood and non-blood, who have also had the same issue. So it was some COVID-related weird thing, but I've had these weird dizzy spells. I had one last night, and I'll just be standing there and doing something, and all of a sudden my face will go pale white, and I feel like I'm going to pass out. So anyway, I ended up in the emergency room, and they kind of got me rehydrated, and my wife couldn't move me. She said I was incoherent and stuff, and so all of that has been going on. Excuse me. And so that's why the content has been a little bit less lately than normal, on top of all the other stuff that I do. So it's been kind of crazy. So bear with me as we kind of get things back on track here. And then I had the FBI visit shortly after that, so it's been quite the last few weeks, to say the least. I do want to say right before I get into this FBI story, um, I have other things that I do outside of the Idaho Dispatch, things that are trying to pull me away from giving you guys the news that I think the Idahoans deserve. And certainly, I mean, I have to feed my family and do all that kind of stuff. But I've talked to a number of marketing people, a number of advisors who are pushing me to do a paywall for the Idaho Dispatch. because at the end of the day, I think we have somewhere over like 202 or 203 current monthly subscribers, and we have some other people who've done one-time donations and whatnot, and we have four, I think, four advertisers currently, and so, you know, to make this self-sustaining, and because this is a project I really believe in, I believe that the news should only be what the facts are, and letting both sides, especially in politics, letting both sides tell their side of the story, and challenging them on things that don't quite add up. And we were trying to. I hate paywalls, but maybe I'm starting to see now why a lot of these places go to a paywall, is because a lot of people enjoy the content. I mean, we made our subscription, our $3 a month, $2.97 a month, and I tried to do a very low one just so that I'm like, holy crap, everybody's got to have $2.97 a month, right? Just to support something they believe in. And maybe news or having this type of news isn't what you believe in. A lot of people like slanted news in their particular direction, right? They want hardcore conservative news and they want to slant in that direction. And that's already all out there if you want that. If you want left leaning news, there's definitely a lot of left leaning news. And so all of that is out there. When we started this project, it was how do we do this how people think that news should be, which is, despite whatever personal opinions and anything that I do on the outside of the Idaho Dispatch, my goal is to come in here and just tell you the facts and all of that. And all of that has led to, like, hey, this is a really great project, but do people really care? At the end of the day, does anybody really care? We do have some great subscribers, we have some great donors, and we have a ton of readers. We have, each article usually gets read thousands of times, or has thousands of page views, I should say. Maybe those are the same person reading it multiple times. I don't know. But is it worth it? Is it worth it all in the end? Because we definitely need to grow at a much more rapid pace to keep this going versus the way that it's going now. And that's why I have advisors and people who run media companies saying just do a paywall and it'll be fine. You'll get the subscribers will come, and I'm just like, man, I really don't want to do a paywall. I want to avoid a paywall. So if you like the work of the Idaho Dispatch, I hope you're a subscriber. It's $2.97 a month, or if you want to do a one-time donation, whatever you want to do, that's totally fine. But there's definitely things on the outside pushing me in a certain direction here, in addition to other projects that I could do that I could honestly make a lot more money doing. But I'm not a money driven person. I believe in this cause. I believe in this effort to bring Idahoans good news that is just the facts without my opinions trying to shove you in a certain direction. So if that's all worth it to you, the link is in the description, idahodispatch.com/subscribe. All right, enough of that. The FBI story. So I was actually home alone with my baby. My wife, my other kids were not here. My wife was not here, and I get a knock at the door. Actually, the weird thing was when they came into the driveway, I heard a car beep, like somebody had locked their car door in my driveway, and I thought that was kind of strange because typically, if you're just stopping at somebody's house for a couple minutes, I don't typically lock my door if I'm just running up to say hi or drop something off or whatever. Usually the only time I ever hear a car door lock is either myself or my spouse locking our vehicle, or family is coming into town, they're staying the night, and then you hear them lock their door in our driveway. And so I hear this door lock, and I thought it was really strange. And then sorry, one sec. Facebook's giving me all sorts of messages here. And then I hear a knock at the door. I'm like, okay, and the baby's up there running around with me and stuff. And I open the door, and there was a male and a female that were there, and the male already had his wallet out. And I was like, oh, great, now what's this all? Oops, sorry about that. I'm like, what's this all about? And he identified himself as an agent with the FBI, and I checked his badge, and then the female flashed her badge, and I looked at that to make sure they were legitimate. And they wanted to talk about, the first thing they said was, you're not in trouble. I said, I know, I don't do anything illegal. But They came in. I offered to let them in, so they just kind of stood in the doorway because it was a little chilly outside, and plus my baby would try to get out the door if I just held it open. So anyway, so they came in and really all they wanted to know, we had done a live stream at the Boise, or excuse me, about the Boise Town Square Mall shooting, so to speak, and we had gotten a tip from a source who had very credible information that the trailer home on Fry Street was the location of the suspect in the Boise Town Square Mall shooting. And I think we went down and live streamed from that location before anybody else in the media had done it, and before the police had publicly announced that that's where the individual lived. And we were very cautious. If you watched that live stream, I was very cautious about what I was saying. We didn't actually say, "Hey, look, he lives right there." It was just like, "Hey, 2 hours after the shooting, there was like 40 cop cars in this area." Right? I mean, there's a very, very large police presence, and that's just not a thing normally, right? Um, and so I believe that's what it was tied to. They didn't necessarily say that specifically, and I can't remember everything that they said, but basically it was, hey, this guy might have a lead on what's going on, and once he started saying we're just kind of curious on how you knew, I said, look, I'm with the media. And I can't reveal. And he kind of interjected as well and said, I don't want to know your source unless that source is willing to talk to us. And what the female agent had said was they wanted to make sure that there wasn't any other leads going to anybody else that was involved with the situation. And um, I didn't think that there was. I based on what I knew, and so I reached out to my source, and that source said that they were willing to talk to the FBI. And so if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. That's great. But that's really all the story was. Nothing, nothing big. For those wishing I was getting arrested, that did not happen either. And so yeah, that's kind of where we are at with the FBI story. And one of the other stories that we did write recently was about the motive for the town square mall shooting. I mean, I kind of talked about that a little bit. These two FBI agents actually told me they didn't really know much about the Boise Town Square case. I mean, they knew about the shooting, obviously. They are based out of eastern Idaho, and so all they were doing was trying to follow up some leads for the folks back in Boise. And so that's why they were like, we don't really know who you are, or what anything like that. I mean, I'm sure they knew something before they came to my house, but this is not their investigation. They were just trying to follow up on leads for some folks back in Boise. But we did reach out to the Boise Police Department Public Information Officer, and I'm sorry, I'm looking over at the story here to make sure I don't remember if I put her name in there. It's a female gal. Oh yeah, Haley Williams. I had reached out to her as a follow up. Said, hey, do you know the motive for the suspect? Has that been determined? Will it ever be determined? And she basically said, we don't know at this time, and we may never know. And that is the case sometimes with these shootings. Is there may not be a motive known for a very long time or ever if they don't find something in the cell phone, in the emails, or anything like that. The suspect was known to the Boise Mall, had been in trouble with them, so to speak, on a number of occasions. The Boise Town Square Mall has had a no gun policy for as long as I can remember. I used to have an apartment very briefly down by the Boise Town Square Mall, and I remember that they did not allow firearms back then, and I think that was 2009, if I remember correctly. So they've had a no firearm policy. Well, the suspect in this case always open carried, and so they, because he open carried, there was conflict between him and the security guards at the mall or whatever. So no motive is known. The FBI agents, I don't, even if they wanted to, I'm sure they couldn't tell me what the motive was if they knew. But that's kind of the big update there. And then the only other story we've really ran recently was that Congressman Russ Fulcher is cancer free, has announced himself as cancer free. So most of you may have known, or maybe you didn't know, that he had cancer. and they have, according to him, cleaned it all up, which is good. Um, some of you may know my brother Eric died of melanoma cancer a couple years ago. Um, After he had been told he was cancer free, and so anytime somebody has cancer, I always tell them, hey, keep checking. Even if they tell you, go check again, go check again. He was cancer free, and then my brother had stage 4 cancer 9 months later, and died shortly after that. So we did have one other. We did have the runoff races. One runoff was in Pocatello. That was Mayor Blad won his reelection against his challenger David Worley, and Jerem Wagner will become the new mayor of Caldwell. He beat. Man, I'm having a. What is his name? uh, Crap. Who did Jerem Wagner beat? Where is it at? I know I have it here. John McGee. Sorry. Wagner beat John McGee. McGee didn't really run. It was kind of a complicated story in the Caldwell runoff. Um, Wagner got like 44% in the initial election, and McGee was the second closest at 22%. McGee tried to file a paperwork with the court to get out of the runoff. The courts kind of kicked it back and said, yeah, we're not going to do that. The city can determine if that's going to happen. The city kind of said, we're stuck. We have to have a runoff. McGee said he wasn't going to campaign. I think that ended up being like 84 to 16% or something like that. And Blad was, I think, 55 to 45 over, somewhere around there, 55 to 45 over David Worley in Pocatello. Um, Luke Malik has dropped out of the lieutenant governor's race, and so that leaves Representative Priscilla Giddings and House Speaker Scott Becky as the two current lieutenant governor's candidates. That is an open race because current Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeehan is in the gubernatorial primary for next year. And I think that's really all of the latest stories that we have had. So, again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. We'd be happy to answer anything that we can. Again, we'd love to have you guys as subscribers. So the only way this thing keeps moving is if we continue that growth, but it's got to grow at a much faster pace than like 6 new subscribers every month. We've got to have more. I've ultimately got to get to a point where we can have an additional uh, reporter. So a lot of people like will contact us and say, "Hey, I'd love to write a story," but what they really want to do is write an op-ed. They don't want to write an unbiased and and only fact-based type thing. They want to write an opinion piece, which is totally fine. But I'd like to have it to where if I'm sick, like I was, or something happens to me, that we at least have somebody else submitting content. So please subscribe. And and I sound like I'm bored. I'm not bored. I'm having fun. I love this project. Am I tired? I'm always tired. We're in the let the baby cry it out stage, and so I was up a lot last night, so I am a little tired. But yeah, be sure to subscribe. We'd love to have you guys on board. Spread the word, and then get other people to subscribe. And if you're an advertiser, shoot us an email, and we'd love to have you guys advertise with us. So anyway, with that, guys, I appreciate your time. Take care, and have a great day.